Now, what if the people in charge of controlling the pandemic also caused the pandemic? That's what political commentator Jon Stewart pointed out here. Here, take a look.
So the idea was, about the vaccines and other things that science had truly helped heal a world from a pandemic, probably called by science.
This is the guy who's been tearing down those politicians in those interviews, so I'm definitely paying attention to what he's got to say. Now, he also talked about a joke that he made recently about Wuhan and the potential lab leak because he's also a comedian. But more interesting is the backlash that he got, which basically wanted to shut him down right then and there. Here he is talking about it.
And the backlash was swift, immediate, and quite loud. The part that I don't like about it is the absolutes and the dismissive, like, fuck you, I'm done with you, I will never forgive you. What was stunning to me, I think, was the anger.
Let's remember the framing for Stewart's joke was, if science caused the pandemic, why would you trust science to resolve the pandemic? I mean, I gotta say, folks, it's kind of an insane world that we live in where people can get away with this and just continue to force a narrative even after they've been exposed. It's insanity. Yeah, so today, guys, we're going to be diving into a pretty juicy topic, the idea that the C-19 pandemic might have actually started from a lab leak. Now, if that's the case, it would mean that the people in charge of the pandemic response might have also caused the whole thing and even profited from it, right? Crazy, huh? But what if it's even worse than that? Like, what if they're still doing these risky experiments during the pandemic? How would you guys feel about that? Drop a quick comment down below. Now, that's some wild stuff, you guys. Oh, and wait a second. Now, apparently they are doing this. Apparently there are claims that British scientists were even doing some risky experiments of their own during the pandemic. Like they were intentionally trying to create more dangerous variants of the virus. And get this, guys, it was actually led by the Imperial College London and supported by the UK Health Security Agency of all places. Now, apparently they infected cells with both the Delta and the Omicron variants at the same time to see which one will come out on top. Sounds pretty sketchy, right? But last but not least, we're also going to try to see if we can make some money from all this by checking out some prime grade A pharmaceutical stocks. You guys ready for this? Also, for the best way to invest in gold or silver, be sure to hit the link in the description down below of this video. You know what's crazy? I mean, it's always amazed me that the people screaming trust the science were the same people ignoring all the science. You know what I mean, guys? So here's the deal. They were doing some pretty sketchy experiments during the pandemic, even though they knew it could have been caused by a lab leak. And get this, it wasn't some underground conspiracy theory. It was all over the mainstream news way back in the day when the new variants were popping up every other day. You guys remember that. But instead of just trying to figure out how to get back to normal life, they started combining different strains like Delta and Omicron just to see what would happen. It's kind of like they were treating science like a playground brawl or something. It's pretty messed up if you ask me. Now, some scientists from the UK's Imperial College London were leading these experiments, and they were basically trying to see which strand had the upper hand. But the problem is, when you start messing with viruses like this, you run the risk of creating a whole new strand that could be even more dangerous than the original one. And that's not even the worst part, because there is a chance that one of these scientists could have gotten infected and spread it across the rest of the community. And don't even get me started on the government's response to all of this. They were basically just rubber stamping these experiments, even though they knew it was risky. But hey, at least they were done in a high security biosafety lab, right? Like that's supposed to make us feel better anyway, right? It's kind of like them saying, yeah, we know it's dangerous, but we're doing it in a really safe place, so it's cool. Anyway, it's all just a big mess, isn't it? Scientists are more interested in profit than anything else, and the government they're regulating it even if it's unethical. And there are literal examples of their dishonesty and their propaganda throughout the whole thing. It's no wonder that people are skeptical and mistrustful of these institutions. Now, according to a report, a lot of countries are doing risky research that could accidentally or intentionally release a pandemic-causing virus. Dr. Philippa Lentzos of the King's College London said that labs handling dangerous pathogens have increased globally, but there isn't enough oversight for biosafety and biosecurity. Well, that's a problem. Professor Van der Merwe from the University of Oxford said that before that, some scientists were afraid to consider the possibility that a lab leak started the pandemic because it would mean they would have to stop some of their own risky experiments. You gotta look out for number one, right? He found that German scientists did a very similar experiment during the alpha and beta variants on animals and humanized mice. They discovered that animal experiments have a much higher risk of selecting more dangerous virus variants because they involve more infected cells for longer periods of time. Now, let me read that last part for you guys. More dangerous viruses, more infected cells for longer periods. I mean, what are these people trying to do to us? According to Van der Merwe, quote, Handling animals is also riskier in terms of transmission of the experimenter than handling cells. Both of these experiments didn't help protect us from C19. If it's proven that the pandemic started due to a lab leak, it would also strengthen the case for stricter global regulations for experiments on dangerous pathogens. Now, at this point, I really wish people would stop pretending like all of this wasn't done intentionally. You know what I mean, guys? You guys are smart, and it's no wonder why investors and even Congress are still leaning hard on pharmaceutical stocks, because these are the types of companies that thrive on this kind of risky behavior. I know it might seem like the demand for vaccines and treatments will disappear once the pandemic's under control, but hear me out. All right, so first off, these companies are doing some serious innovation, not just in response to C19, but they're also developing new drugs and therapies for all sorts of conditions that people will still need help with, like cancer, heart disease, mental health issues. Plus, people are becoming more aware of the importance of good health, and they're taking care of themselves, which means that they'll still be willing to pay for the medications and for the treatments that they need. And let's not forget about the aging population. As we get older, we tend to need more medical care, which means more opportunities for pharmaceutical companies to create new products and new treatments. So I think investing in pharmaceutical stocks is something we should consider if you're looking to add an income stream through investing, you know? Now, it's interesting to see how the C19 pandemic basically reworked the stock market in favor of certain industries. The pandemic hit and boom, everything went haywire. The economy went through some serious rough times, which caused a lot of uncertainty and crazy swings in the stock market. Now, one of the biggest changes that I've seen is how volatile the stock prices have been. It's been pretty tough to predict what's going to happen next, let alone investing in anything. The S&P 500 index, which is kind of like the big boss of the stock market, it dropped over 34% from its peak in February of 2020 to its low point in February of 2020. This is only a month, and it was a rough time for traders, with many losing hope after a year of rolling losses. It's starting to feel like we're headed for an economic climate that is worse than what we saw back in 1977. But then the governments and central banks around the world stepped up and they threw a ton of money at the problem. Stimulus packages, baby. And, well, it worked. Stock market started to recover nearly instantly. The S&P 500 index climbed back up, and it even hit all-time highs by the end of 2020. Now, unfortunately, things have been a little bit rocky this year, but there's still hope for recovery. Some industries like healthcare, technology, e-commerce, they've been kind of like a magnet for investors' money. And with people resorting to more online pharmacies, home-based diagnostics, and online shopping, you can see it for yourselves. The company's stock prices have been going through the roof. However, industries like travel, hospitality, and retail, they were hit the hardest by the lockdowns and other restrictions that came with the pandemic. These companies have suffered a lot, especially with their stock prices plummeting big time. Many businesses in the sector had to lay off tons of their employees, while some even had to file for bankruptcy, and this led to further drops in the stock prices. It's been a rough ride though. Now, you might hear from other channels how the markets have really bounced back big time lately, with gains for 2 quarters in a row now. It's up about 5.5% so far this quarter, on top of the 7% surge in the last 3 months of 2022. Now, you might think that everything's all good in the stock market world, but I would beg you to hold up a minute. Things might not be as rosy as they seem. You see, the thing is, only a tiny percentage of stocks are actually responsible for the overall rise. I mean, we're talking about big players in the industry like Nvidia, Meta Platforms, Tesla, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Advanced Micro Devices, AMD. They're the ones that are actually driving most of the gains, with increases ranging anywhere from 50% to 87%. Now, without them, the S&P 500, it would be in pretty bad shape. In fact, when you guys look at the stocks equally, the index hasn't really gone up that much at all, less than 0.5% this quarter. And other measures of the stock market like the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index are basically flat. So what I'm trying to say here is, don't be fooled by the headline numbers and this mainstream media hyping up all of this like it's the next big bubble of the financial market. An expert named Ed Yardeni, who's been around Wall Street for ages and is known for making up phrases like bond vigilante and Fed model, he wrote to his clients this week saying that the performance of the S&P 500 and its equally weighted alternative are diverging. He pointed out that this tends to happen just before recessions. A recession, so it's a cause for concern. Other measures of breadth also show weakness, like the numbers of stocks that are trading above their 200-day moving average and the number of stocks hitting new 52-week highs. Now, to make matters worse, Bloomberg did a survey of economists, and they're saying that there's a 65% chance of a recession happening within a year. Now, this is way higher than the average of 25% since 2008. The survey also predicts the gross domestic product, or the GDP, will grow 1% in 2023, which is pretty pathetic, really. And when you take into account the recent bank failures and the fact that lenders will probably make it even harder to get credit, even that 1% forecast, it might be too optimistic. But what do you guys think? Do you believe mainstream media when they say that the market and our economy are recovering? Is that what you guys are seeing at the checkout counter in the grocery store? Or what about when you fill up at the gas pump? Let me know what you guys are seeing for real in the real world down in the comment section down below. But for now, I hope you guys caught all of your information in today's big update, daily financial news report, scientists experimenting with C19 and making it more deadly, plus some really nice stock market insights for you guys. Appreciate you guys sticking with me. And as always, thank you for dropping a like for the videos. I really appreciate that. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Please be kind to one another, and I'll see you in the next one.